In this fast-paced world we live in, it's becoming increasingly rare to take a moment to sit down, unwind, and connect with others at a deeper level. Welcome to Iñaky's Coffee Club, the podcast that aims to create a space for engaging and thought-provoking conversations that transcend the ordinary. Today we have a very special guest with us today, which is Carolyn Rhodes. And not only is she a good friend of mine, but she's also my sales manager at Kuper Sotheby's International Realty, and she's the vice president of Kuper Sotheby's International Realty, which did over $4 billion in real estate sales in the Central Texas market last year. Thank you for being with us today, Carolyn.
I am so excited to be here, and thank you for the coffee club, which I'm renaming the Nitro Club.
All right.
So I'm totally
Cheers.
excited. Cheers. So I'm going to have a little sip. And I am just happy to be here. And what a great way to start the day, I am telling you.
Yeah, you were saying that this is like such a good way to start the day, and it's so true because like we're so busy, especially in the real estate world, and we wake up and we have so many emails, texts, phone calls, and like we just have to kind of like wake up and attack the day. And so starting the day like this kind of just makes you think about other things and relax and sit down. And so I appreciate you saying that.
Well, and it starts with my morning of how grateful I am for the two of you. I mean, you know, you guys walked into our lives a few years ago and it totally rocked the world of our brokerage, rocked our little office in New Braunfels, Texas, and we're so grateful to be in business with you and how much fun it's been. I mean, you've made it fun for me. I came back to the leadership side from sales, and it's people like you that make me want to keep doing this.
Thanks. Well, I appreciate that. And I always enjoy having conversations with you. And I know that a lot of people call you with problems and stuff, and I like to just give you a call to see how you're doing. And always love just talking to you and
telling stories.
Yeah, telling stories.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of stories going on.
Yeah,
Lots
exactly.
of stories going on.
Well, you keep it fun too.
We try.
Yeah. So just kind of tell our listeners, you know, who you are. Like, tell us a little bit about your background, like where you started. Like, you've done so much in this world, in the real estate, and many different aspects. And like, I'm just so proud of you, and I look up to you, and like, I learn from you like every single time I talk to you. So like, I'm very honored that you're here with us today.
Well, I'm honored to be here. Wow, I started in 1991 as an assistant to a top producer in the inner loop of Houston, Texas. And that brokerage is now a Sotheby's brokerage. At the time, it was affiliated with another auction house franchise, which we won't use their name. And that was, I had no intention of going into real estate at all whatsoever. I was on a career path in the food and beverage industry with a company called Club Corporation of America, which was a huge private club company that ran first-class clubs, city clubs, country clubs, some of the more famous clubs, the original host of the TPC golf tournaments, all that fun stuff. And I got into the middle of that and was like, wow, this is crazy. And, you know, I started a wedding coordinator business on the side because I could never just have one job. And I think Iñaky can relate to that. So I had the wedding coordinator business, plus I was the on-site food and beverage manager. And, you know, the problems I was dealing with was staff in jail and really angry bridezillas and all kinds of stuff going on there. And I thought, man, there's got to be a different path. And my best friend, her dad had started the company that started Martha Turner Sotheby's. And they had been trying to drag me into real estate for a couple of years. And so they finally got their wish. And I started out, I went back to school because I had a school interruption. So I went back to school and I was a weekend receptionist for a real estate company. And in 4 months, I was the sales manager with no sales experience, by the way. But so it just sort of mushroomed into that career. And I was very, very, very lucky. The company I worked for was a mom and pop shop on steroids. So they were a luxury brokerage, a luxury construction company, and they purchased an amazing architectural firm called Lucian Hood. And Lucian Hood was one of the premier designers in South Texas at the time. So we had a library of 200,000 plans. We had a construction company, and I ended up being the liaison over all three companies, which was a blast. So I learned how to build. I learned how to sell luxury real estate. My boss at the time, Lucy Carl, she is still with us. She is still rocking it, going strong, an amazing human being, truly a force of nature. And watching Lucy navigate celebrity clients and you know, Houston was big money back then.
Right.
And we were building some amazing product that had never been seen before. And it was just so much fun. And then, of course, we were all young. And I was in business with her son, who I'd gone to high school with. And then, two of my friends also came on board. So we were all the same age. We'd all gone to high school together, and we thought, you know what, we can do this better.
Yeah.
So we all quit, and we all went our separate ways. We all started separate companies. So that's kind of what happened to me. I met a young man, the age of, 75, 78 years old, in an elevator. He was about 4'11", and he looked exactly like Santa Claus. And I was having a crisis of career at the moment, and I had accepted a job at Enron, of all places.
Oh, wow.
So I'm at Enron, and my position hadn't officially started. I'd gone through training, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up, and met this little Santa Claus man who took me to Austin and stuck me in a room with Gary Keller for a week. And Gary, of course, recruited me because literally he could get anybody to do anything.
Sure.
And so I was the founding team leader of the Keller Williams Houston Metropolitan Office. We had 0 agents. We had a 6,000 square foot office space being built out. Both of the operating principals quit, and it was just me sitting there with Gary and a young man by the name of Mark Willis, who went on to later on be the CEO of Keller Williams, fantastic guy. And we just started that office and got it up and running quickly. So I really took to recruiting. I loved recruiting because I believed in what we had to offer compared to the other brokerages, and I was so excited about it. And I was just, bringing in people left and right. We were having a ball, and it was interesting because my whole background at that point had been in luxury real estate. And Keller wasn't serving luxury real estate very well, I thought, at least not in Houston. Houston was not accepting of a franchise company. There was kind of that old school snobbery there a little bit. And I knew that my path was going to go back into sales. So I just thought, I love the leadership side, but I think I want to do something else. And then I recognized that I wasn't going to be able to list and sell without a brand behind it. So instead of going to one of our competitors, because I just didn't want to dishonor the service that how they had treated me when I exited Keller, it was fantastic. Gary was fantastic. So I started my own little brokerage firm with about 10 agents, and we had a blast. I got to list and sell what I wanted to do, and then folded in later to the builder that I had represented, all my friends. So we all got back together. I went into the building side, and we were on fire. I mean, we built out, they did the Woodlands Waterway project, all of those beautiful brownstones.
Yeah.
I know you're very familiar with that. All of that Panther Creek waterfront development. We did Lake Point and Sugar Land, which was my baby. That was fantastic. We got Whole Foods and a hotel, and we built, at the time, I think we had the highest per square foot selling 4-story townhome, certainly in Sugar Land, but in Houston. So we were breaking all kinds of sales records with a beautiful product that we built. And the construction experience was amazing because honestly, you can't replace that. And I was being taught by people that had, master's degrees in construction engineering, and they were taking the time to teach me. And I was talking to the vendors, and because I was one of the few women in the company, I got saddled with picking all of the stuff, which I was not good at. So I had to learn design, I had to learn architecture, I had to learn project management, I had to learn development. It was great. I had to learn how much concrete you needed. I had to be able to read a plan. All of those skills have translated into what I do today.
Yeah.
I mean, truly. And it's just a wealth of experience. And I got to do it with my friends who I love dearly and still love. And I was allowed to leave and grow in my career and do what I wanted to do. And I got married the second time to the fabulous Greg Hufstetler a little bit later in life, and I inherited some stepkids. So that changed everything. So I went back into sales.
Yeah.
And so I went back into sales with the Sotheby's franchise in Houston at the time. Had an absolute blast. Was a time in my life that I will never forget. And then Greg upended my world and said, honey, he's from Georgia, we're moving to guess where? And I'm like, where? And he goes, San Antonio. I'm like, no, we're not. And I had this kind of a big business built, and I'm like, well, I don't know anybody in San Antonio.
Right.
So we ended up moving to San Antonio in 2014 because he wanted to be with Boeing, and I wanted him to have his dream because he retired from NASA. And so we ended up in Central Texas. I had never really been to Central Texas.
Sure.
So I'm like, what is this about? And then I saw the opportunity. And it was funny because at that point, I'd done construction, I had done commercial, I had been a luxury real estate agent, I'd been on the leadership side. And I got into Central Texas, and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of farm and ranch here, and I don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
So luckily, I got frustrated with the temporary job that I had, and I started quizzing people about who owned Kuper, Sotheby's International Realty, and everybody kept telling me to call this fantastic gentleman named Rick Kuper, but I didn't realize that he wasn't the owner. He had sold the firm to his son, the fabulous Jay Kuper, and so somebody gave me Jay's cell phone. I called Jay's cell phone. We talked on the phone for about 4 minutes. I could hear him Googling me, which was hilarious. And he's like, can you meet me in 30 minutes? And I'm like, okay. And I literally walked out of a job and met with Jay, met Cynthia Murray, one of the sales managers that had been there for 42 years at that point.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I don't want you to be an agent. I want you to be a manager. I'm like, no. And so that was 2015.
That's
and
hilarious. So you came wanting to be an agent.
Oh, I had no interest whatsoever in being a sales
Wow.
manager.
Wow.
None. And if you've met Jay, he could literally talk you into anything.
Very convincing.
So he said, okay, just 2 years.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, wait, that was 2015. So
Oh, wow.
here we are.
That's amazing.
I know.
What a story.
That is a story.
And,
I
you know,
know.
we love Jay Kuper. And, you know,
He's the best.
Yeah. And like you said, 4 minutes and then he wanted to meet you. And I think that's also part of success, right? Like you have to be able to make decisions quickly and not just kind of sit on them. And so he saw something in you. He knew he wanted to meet with you. And obviously it all worked out. And here you are, you know, however many years later. And you're now the vice president of the company, which I think is amazing.
Well, he's just, you know, he's everything I love in a person. He is, you know, I've worked with a lot of brokers. I was in the broker role, and there's a lot of pressure there. There's a lot of financial pressure there. There is a lot of pressure from the agents because the agent is our client.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a dance, and Jay is so full of integrity.
Yeah.
And again, I came from Houston. Houston's pretty evolved market. It's very rough and tumble, very harsh. The brokers, you know, are friends, but they're not friends. They're friendly. They sue each other all the time. I mean, it's just a very different environment.
Yeah.
And you know, because you came
Right.
from Houston, and everybody's in power suits, and it's just a whole different ball of wax. It's big ball. It's not small ball.
Right. It's hilarious. I started with Sotheby's in Houston, and I was used to wearing full suits every day, even though it's so humid in
Sweat.
Houston. And I would literally have to have like 2 or 3 shirts in my car just so I could change in between appointments because I was just sweating in the middle of summer in the Houston heat, going from house to house, showing clients. And then whenever I moved to New Braunfels, I walked into the Sotheby's office in a full suit, and you were like,
No.
you can't do that here.
No,
People
just
wear
take-
shorts here.
Just take
Yeah.
that off right now.
And it took me a while to get used to it, you know, and like I started just wearing jeans, and then all of a sudden I started wearing shorts. Now I wear shorts to client meetings, and it's totally normal in New Braunfels. And honestly, it's great to be able to work in shorts.
Well, and when you walked into the New Braunfels office, I mean, you didn't know anybody.
Right.
You were starting a business literally from scratch. You were 40 years younger than the average buyer and seller there. I didn't really know the market that well. I had just been there for a few months.
Yeah.
And it was it was an experimental office that we opened. Frankly, it didn't meet Sotheby's requirements for average sales price. So we were all just kind of learning together. And you walked in, and we knew that we wanted to be in business with you. And well, I did in 18 seconds, but it was just, we all had to adjust how the brand would translate to New Braunfels. And it's been an adjustment the whole time. And for me, it's about the people. I knew that if I went out, we interviewed 42 agents for that office. And I remember leaving, and we were in the Stone Oak office. I walked out of the Stone Oak office. I had tears in my eyes, and I had interviewed like 9 agents that day.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I didn't want to be in business with any of them. And it was reputation, it was presentation. They were all, and you know, not trying to sound snobby or whatever, but I was very concerned about the business as usual there because they weren't aware of how you treat your client. And there was just a lot of deficiencies. And they were getting away with it. And so I thought, wow, okay, we're going to be 3 agents, I guess. And so
Yeah.
we ended up hiring, I think, 14 at the time. I was on the fence about 2 of them. And the rest is history. And we're so proud of that office. We're so proud to be in business with the agents that have stayed with us through thick and thin. But that project has been the most fun, I think.
Yeah, and it's so funny because, I now understand how selective Kuper Sotheby's International Realty is. At the time, I just walked into the office full confidence, gave my card to one of the top producers there, and she let me tell the story, Janet. And she said, I told her, hey, I'm going to work here. Please give this to your sales manager.
She did.
And she threw my card in the trash.
She did.
And she confessed that to me 2 years later.
She did.
And it's hilarious. And then somehow, I think the admin at the time, Robbie, yeah, she reached out to you and told you that I had walked in. And then you called me in, and I'm so glad that you did, because I would never go anywhere else. And I've been with the brand really for 8 years, starting in Houston.
Right.
And I just love it. I love the networking aspect of it. I love that New Braunfels is growing. I love that our presence is growing in New Braunfels. And I just love our community and how we interact with each other, because to your point, I feel that some offices are very cutthroat, and they're locking their file cabinets away, and they're scared of other agents stealing their clients. Whereas in our office, we have our clients' names and addresses on whiteboards for everybody to see. We don't have to worry about each other, because we have that trust within each other, and we call each other whenever we have questions about certain areas, certain neighborhoods, or certain things with the contract that we may not be completely 100% aware of.
We've got a great group.
It's interesting because I've always felt, from being a sales manager to this role, my job is to guard that. My job is to be the gatekeeper of what human beings set foot with the human beings that I love and trust. And I take that incredibly seriously, because it's all about the people. It's all about the mix of people. I think that's what leadership should be, is, yes, you have your chessboard, you have your chess game, but you can't do it without the pieces. And if you've got one bad piece, right, if you've got one headless pawn, you can't play the game. And, we have seen, and, over and over again, from when I was with Keller Williams to my own brokerage, I saw that mix of people could either be a winning combination, but one person could really tank it. And, we've got to honor what our standards are. And for me, it started with character. Lord knows I love a person with a growth mindset. We're probably gonna have to talk about that.
Yeah.
The fixed mindset is really hard for me to deal with, because, people that fear possibility probably don't relate to me very well. And so I don't love fear.
Yeah.
So I just want people to be like, we're gonna do it. And so that growth mindset, that positive attitude. But even if you don't have a growth mindset, you have to be collaborative.
Yeah.
But you can't be guarded, you can't be snarky, you can't have an agenda. It won't work with us. And we are a small but mighty office. And each of our Kuper offices, we've got 10 offices across the whole country. They all have very different flavors. And again, in my role now, I'm trying to make sure that I'm guarding that, and that I'm honoring their past experience.
Yeah.
What we have are people that have stayed with the brokerage for a long, long time.
Right.
I owe them an homage to their past successes. But the business has shifted considerably from then, which means that your strategies have to shift. And some of them keep up, some of them don't. But we want to make sure that we give them and afford them the opportunity to, if they can't adjust to it, that they can, we can help them and pick up the slack there, or they can hire to that weakness that they have themselves, have an assistant that can help them pivot there, and they can just go out and deal with the people, which is what they're great at.
Yeah.
Whether they're 90 or 20.
It's so important, because, sometimes, as entrepreneurs and business owners, we're worried about all these different things, like what the product is, how much we're going to sell, and all these different things that are just kind of high level stuff that are important for the business. But at the end of the day, it's the people that really make the business. Right. And, one of the people one of the persons that's the most important to my business is Malin, who you introduced to me, right? I was going around just saying, hey, I need help. I'm looking for help. And really at the time, everybody at the New Braunfels office was like, what are you doing? You just got here. You don't know anybody here. Why are you looking for another mouth to feed? It was a very rare concept for them, that I was looking for help right away. And honestly, I thought I was going to have to interview multiple people and kind of get through a few people to find the right one. And just through word of mouth, you got in touch with her and you connected us, right? Somehow you figured out that we would be a good match, and here we are on our 5th year now, and you know, have never looked back. So I'm so very grateful for you and for what you've done for our business.
I know. I'm grateful for both of y'all. I don't think I
there-
would be here.
There's a story there. So my magic backpack, which is in my car right now, so I get a lot of resumes, and I kept rereading your resume. I kept rereading it and I kept it. I kept a paper copy of your resume. I had it for a long time, weeks, maybe months, I don't know. But I carried it around. So every time I go in my bag, pull my computer out, I'm like, oh, there's Malin. Is that how you say it? Is it Malin? Is it, you know? And I just couldn't get her out of my head. And I'm like, well, there's no way she'd want to be an admin because that's a different sort of job. And then you walked up, and of course, you didn't have at the time your pending was good, but your current production level didn't intellectually support hiring somebody yet. And I think I said to you something along the lines of, you know, let's go for it.
Yeah.
And I've not said that to many people because I knew that you were committed. I knew that you would follow through, and I knew your core values. You would not hire somebody and then, you know, promise salary and promise this and then throw them to the wind because you're just not wired that way, because I knew you would do everything to make it happen. And I talked to her on the phone, and, you know, I don't like to do this because I like to pretend like I'm super duper on purpose, but I'm not. I'm super duper intuitive. And so I will make very quick decisions. You know, sometimes I've been pretty good at picking talent, and, you know, a lot of times I'll just know there's a little still small voice in my head that will go, you need to look at that one for sure. And it's true on the negative side as well. I mean, I've got a good read of people that has served me so well. And if there's a skill that anybody should be building, start being able to read people, because that will serve you very well.
Yeah, for sure.
Who to trust, who not to trust, who to get in business with, who to cut it early. And so part of my success has been, again, back to the chess analogy, you know, getting those right pieces in the right spots. And some of it has to be intuitive. You know, I do check references. I'm meticulous about that. Thank you, Gary Keller, for that habit.
Yeah.
But people get nervous about talking about other people.
Right.
So they'll say really nice things, and I don't know them, and I'm trying to figure out what the tone of voice is. Sometimes you just got to go with what you're seeing and what you're feeling in your heart when you talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And
Good at reading people for sure.
you got to be.
Yeah. So what was kind of like your side of the story, you know, because like for you, you know, it's like kind of you were taking, you know, a risk, right? Like you were just coming on with me, like we didn't know each other. And obviously the brand helps, right? Like you wanted to be with Kuper, Sotheby's International Realty, but then there were so many agents there. Like what made you kind of like feel safe and feel that like this was the right decision for you?
I mean, I was new to the business. I had had my license for maybe 6 months. I started with my mother-in-law down in South Texas, kind of learning the ropes. And then when Jacob and I moved to New Braunfels, I knew I wanted to be, if you're going to do it, but do it right. And I knew that Sotheby's was the place to be. And because they're great, you know, they don't hire new agents. So I knew the way to get my foot in the door was to work for somebody. And I think I just was excited for the opportunity, you know. We were about the same age.
Yeah.
We had a mutual friend. I had a good feeling about it, you know. And so we always say we're just getting started.
Yeah.
And we've said that
We
for
really do.
years, you know.
Yes.
So we both think the same way. We have similar goals for where we want to be one day, and it's just worked really well.
That's
but
so
I think
important.
I'm just grateful for it. You know, there's not really a rhyme or reason, but
That's so
it
important.
happened. It happened for a reason.
We really
so.
always say, like, anytime we get like a big deal, we're like, and this is just the start. Like every time, like that's our mindset. Like, and it's so true. We have such a long runway because we're so young compared to the average agent and broker in the market. So we feel that we have a long runway and we're really just getting started.
So I've been thinking about this because one of the principles in business, and when I sit down with an agent and I see an agent that's struggling, a lot of times it's because they are doing the same thing year after year. And the problem is that every single year, it's like their first year again. Now, they may have 14 years of experience. You know, they're not having to learn the contract. They're not really having to learn anything, but they've never gotten past that startup point. What I love about you guys is that you've just blown past that startup point, but you recognize that there's ceilings of achievement, and that you know that, okay, this project or this client or this opportunity or this team member is going to take us in this other direction. And you guys are at least jockeying to prepare for that. That's very unusual. And that tells me that this business will sustain over the long haul. The sky is the limit as long as you keep that attitude. And that's part of the reason I love being in business with you so much, because you guys are just rocking it, because you're sitting there going, okay, look, here in this mindset will conquer every problem. It will conquer every platform that you don't understand problem. It will conquer every team member that might disappoint you. It will conquer all of those problems, because if you say we're just getting started, then you know that there's still that startup work. Where I see agents get complacent, they're doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So trite, but so true. I think that they don't get the fact that they are just hitting a ceiling. And the problem with hitting a ceiling, and this was something that when I was building our Keller Williams business, I would hit plateaus of number of agents. I would hit plateaus of us being able to serve those agents properly, of what we needed to do next. And I recognized that I wasn't just coasting. I was going backwards. And if you accept the fact that there is no coasting, there's only moving forward or backward, and backward is not the direction you want to go.
Yep.
I think that will serve you very well. And, we talk about people's databases. I think the national average is that they decrease if you don't stay in touch with people, but they decrease naturally by 15% a year. It's more than that.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
definitely.
And the older you are, it's more than that. And so you can't rest on your laurels to build a real estate business that's sustainable.
Yeah, and so those 14 years of experience are really 1 year of experience repeated 14 times.
Right.
Because they're
Right.
doing the same thing over and over and
Not
over
being
again.
innovative.
So every year we're looking at what worked, what didn't work. Let's drop what didn't work, do more of what worked, and then what are the new things that we can do this year to improve?
Yeah. We
So
try
we're-
new things every year.
We're
We
always
really do.
reevaluating our
So
business.
I have a question. Have you, because I know the answer for myself, but I want to ask you a question. Is there anything that you just were like, this is going to work, we're going to do this, that it was almost like handing your baby over to a stranger when you realized that this has got to go? I mean, have you had a painful breakup with either a platform or a task you were doing or something? I just had to ask that just because.
That's a good one.
I feel like there's been so many of those.
Yeah.
But we don't really focus on like the pain, like, because we know that everything that we try, it doesn't have to work. We just have to see if it works, and if it doesn't, then we drop it and then we move on to the next thing.
Right.
So we don't really
We don't get stuck on something.
Yeah, we have a mindset of we are not really concerned about the outcome. We're just going to try
That's
it.
perfect.
And then we figure out what the outcome is, and then
Right.
we make a decision on whether we want to keep using it or not.
You can't be concerned with the outcome. You would get so burnt out.
Right.
Like, I just think about all the projects that we've had an idea we might get, and if we just thought about the outcome, I mean, depression.
And as a human, right, you are naturally, sometimes you get lost in loss, and that's a bad place to be, especially in this business. And
Yeah.
if you can just sort of, get out of the mindset of, gosh, that's walking away, that didn't work out, and dwelling on that. But I think that's one of the hardest things that I see real estate agents go through, because they tend to be sole proprietors.
Yeah.
If they're collaborative with their teammates, but it's on a semi-regular basis. So they're kind of out there doing it by themselves.
Yeah.
And, it can get hairy out there, and it can get personal. I had an agent call me from another brokerage, and it was a conflict over a listing and whether they had the listing and we had the listing. And I was trying to be very gentle and delicate with her. I was on the phone with her, it felt like forever yesterday. And her, description of what she had walked through with this client. And I said, this is an opportunity for you to look at your systems, and maybe you need to pair with a larger brokerage. Maybe just being a single unit patrol broker isn't working and you're unable to compete. And I said, the marketing that you're doing, you can't compete with us on that level. And that's just a fact.
Yeah.
And, we ended up having a really great conversation. But the fear of loss and the fact that she'd been doing it that way for 26 years. And she was so excellent in her standards and her care of the client. And the client's going, I'm not getting this, and this.
Right.
And the listing expired, and she contacted us. The client did, and the client wanted to list with us. And this poor agent was just really upset about the loss and the transition, and just called me to complain about our agent, and it turned into a great conversation. But it's hard out there when you're a sole proprietor.
And I think it just comes down to like one of the most important things about being a real estate agent, which is we have to have our clients' interests in mind. And when you're worried about the outcome for yourself, that means you don't actually have the best interests for your clients in mind. And the way we operate is that when somebody says, I don't want to sell anymore, and we've been working on it for 6 months, and we're just like, cool, no problem.
Right.
That's because they don't want to anymore, and we're not worried about the outcome because at the end of the day, we still served them well. We did our best job that we could, and at the end of the day, like their life decisions have changed, moved them a different direction or whatever, and we're not concerned that, oh, we just put all this money into marketing and didn't get a return on it, because we look at the whole picture, right? We don't look at individual transactions. We look at our whole year as a whole. And we're not dwelling on the negatives or on the losses. We're just always moving forward.
Yeah. It all balances out because sometimes that can relieve you and give you some time for something that you don't know that's right around the corner.
And you don't always know. As much as we try to track and have analytics, you don't always know where a client comes from. That could have come from the marketing on that property.
Right.
Or that may have sealed the deal. And that's the thing is, just don't slam the door shut before the next miracle happens.
Right.
And if you're mentally slamming that door shut, you're sunk.
Yeah.
And, I don't want to work with somebody that's mad about their last deal.
Yeah.
And this poor lady on the phone yesterday, and I don't know why I'm dwelling on her, but we talked for so long, but she was so, and I'm sitting here going, but that next buyer isn't going to want to work with you because you're so upset that you spent 8 hours with a photographer.
Yeah, exactly.
On a listing that you didn't relist.
And that's so true. Like you never know where the client came from. And that's one of the things I tell my new teammates now. It's that the work that you put in today is what's going to feed you, in the next 90 days and the next year. And sometimes it's going to feel that you're just doing a lot of work for no reason.
Yes.
And so I always try to prove to myself and to my team, I track back, this client came because I went to that networking event 3 years ago. And that's how I got these clients. And 3 years ago, nothing came out of it. But the thing is, you just have to be in the game and you just have to keep doing, wake up every day and just do the things that you're supposed to do, whether they're producing outcomes or not. You just have to do it.
Right.
Well, and what I say behind your back is that your mama brought you up right. And so you are always focused on the right thing. And the right thing is outside of yourself and your own interests. And it's interesting because we're one of the few industries where our fiduciary obligation and statutorily we can't lie, and we have to place the client's interest ahead of our own. And it's a mixed bag out there with realtors who either it hasn't sunk in with them, they haven't heard that. And again, when I'm looking for agents, and I know you have the same philosophy, the individual agents for your team on the macro scale for our bigger team, I'm always looking for people that get the fiduciary. I want to know, the first question I typically ask an agent that I'm talking to, I talked to one yesterday, I'm like, well, give me an example of something that you've done just extraordinary for your client. And we had an agent the other day, Jeannie Parker and Julie Mack. We couldn't get the closing docs out. She booked a commercial flight, flew to California, and flew back with the documents.
Amazing.
To get it done because they were moving overseas. There were all these financial issues going on.
Yeah.
And the title company wasn't cooperating like they should have. And they're going, well, FedEx is 2 days or whatever. And she's like, you know what? Booked a flight, got on a plane, came back, called me from the plane on the way back. And she called me to make sure that, she was right about, what time the day ended and all that stuff. She wasn't calling me to announce what a great person she was. She doesn't even want me to tell this story.
Sure.
But she did it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, and that's because, she probably feels the same way I feel, which is I build relationships with my clients and I'm not worried about the transaction. I'm worried about the relationship. Right. And so whereas somebody else would have seen that flight as an additional expense that they didn't want to incur, she just wanted to get the deal done for her clients, no matter what it took.
Right. And she wanted to accommodate their schedule, their move, the stress that they were under moving over. I mean, it was a very complicated transaction, and she just didn't even hesitate, jumped on a plane, no regard for herself. I mean, literally, she goes, I got my toothbrush in my purse and just rolled on.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
and
amazing.
then that's who we're in business with. And so I can't say enough about our team and these examples that I hear day in and day out. And they don't want me to tell them publicly. Matter of fact, they'll probably be mad if they see this, but they don't want you to know, you know. And I have the privilege of being let in to the top producers in Central Texas, and we have all of the top producers. We have the number 1, number 2, number 5, number 6, number 8. We have almost all of the top producers in our brokerage. And I get to get inside of their businesses with them. I mean, is there a bigger honor than that? This is why I do this.
Yeah.
I mean, and everybody's so different. And I love the fact that businesses are autobiographical. I mean, the two of you have built this business that's part fun, part Malin, who is just absolutely like the operations brain of the century. And that combination is just, it's just magical.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, it's so fun.
Yeah,
you need
so
both.
so true. Like we couldn't do it without each other. I don't think. And it comes back to the philosophy for, like you said, for me, fun. I don't see myself as a realtor. My philosophy is be a friend first, and then eventually those friends will need a real estate agent. But I don't go out and try to get business. I just go out and make friends, and so then business just flows towards me. And then I pass it on to her, and then she just takes care
Fills
of
in
it.
the blanks.
Right? It's the law of attraction. I mean, and you've done that. And it's so funny because I could go drop you in Tulum, I could drop you in Chicago, I could drop you in Atlanta, and you would have the same results. And it's all up here.
Yeah.
It's all because of how, and it's here. It's how you treat people, and it's that law of attraction. And you've never felt salesy. You know, we do, you know, big secret. I'm not 100% sure who our audience is, but for our clients, we do, you know, follow some scripts and dialogues so that we can serve the client better. But I've never felt scripted or dialogue from you. And there are agents that I have interviewed in the last couple of months that I just felt like, hey, I mean, it's almost, you know, I felt like they were going to pull out like a whiteboard and put always be closing on it or something.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that doesn't feel good to me. I love to be sold.
Yeah.
No question. And, you know, I've got my car guy, I've got my appliance guy, I've got all my guys because I love to be sold.
Yeah.
But they all approach it with what are your needs first and as a friend first rather than we got this and we got this and we got this.
Yeah,
And
that just doesn't
hate
work
that
anymore.
approach.
You
Yeah.
got to be authentic.
But there's so many out there and
Right,
it's still
right.
being done.
Yeah. And to your point, you know, like the scripts are to help us diagnose the
Yes.
client, right?
Yeah.
And another thing I wanted to add to that is that even though like sometimes I'm saying the same things over and over again and it feels like scripts, like earlier in my career, I heard about learning scripts and I sat down and tried to read scripts and I was like, this is not for me. So I've never really like memorized scripts. It's just from doing it so much that I know what questions to ask. And so, you know, it's like the other day we're in a meeting and you mentioned something and it was an objection and I knew how to handle it. But that's not because I memorized that script. Like it'll come out different whenever I
Right.
handle it the next time. But it's just from repetition and from doing it over and over and over again. And being in that situation, you know, clients, they buy and sell their home every 5 to 7 years. To whereas we're helping people do this, you know, all the time. So we know what their questions are going to be before they ask them. But at the same time, we can't jump in and just give them the answer. We have to listen to them. And sometimes there's a question behind the question. And we have to find out and dig deeper on what the real concern is.
And I just think that that is the role that we play. I mean, we are entrusted with their most important asset. It may not be their largest asset, but it's their most important asset. It's where the birthday parties are. It's where their you know, grandmother comes to stay with them. It's where their kids grow up. I mean, it's so incredibly important, and it's the center of their life, right? It's the sun and all of the other stuff, the business and the jobs and school and kids and all their activities. But everything starts with that home, and you just can't. I can't say enough about how important that asset is, how honored we are that people hand it to us and entrust us with that. And, you know, our job then is to go on every single level. What is that client's experience from the first call to the first showing to that first time you meet them in their home when they want to list it, to what the showing on their listing looks like. If they're doing an open house, what does that look like? And I've watched agents just knock it out of the park. I mean, from giving kids tickets to Six Flags so that they could go have a day while the house was being held open by the agent, to taking care of people's pets to make sure they're not stressed while strangers are in the house. I mean, I've watched people, our agents go the extra mile, and that's our level of service is totally different than what you read about or what you hear about or what you see on some of those terrible shows. Not mentioning any names. It's where you've got a lot of divas that are fighting or whatever. It's not like that. It's literally about what level of care can we give that person that's entrusted us with their most important asset.
Yeah, and the experience is really so important, and that's why going above and beyond is very important, because you can be completely perfect in the entire transaction, and there's one piece that just goes south, and if you didn't take care of that small piece, in their mind they had a terrible transaction. So every single step of the transaction is so important. It's about, they're not going to remember what you did or what you said. They're going to remember how you made them feel.
Right.
So when you take that extra step, that may not be in your job description or may not be what a realtor normally does, but you go ahead and take care of the kid while they are at the signing table, or just do those extra little things. They remember how you made them feel, how easy the transaction felt, and then that's when they're going to call you back. That's when they're going to want to refer their friends to you, because they remember the experience that they had.
So true. And I don't remember which book it was. You probably do, but one of the books coined it from the probably late 90s, the moments of truth, where you've got the opportunity to rise or fall. And yesterday I was at our San Antonio office in the Dominion, talking to our #1 luxury agent in San Antonio, and we were kind of giggling about problems. And I think we get along. I think you get along with him. I get along with him, because we all have that same philosophy of, if there's a problem, we just jump on it.
Yeah.
And there's, I don't know I think experience teaches you this. I think that people skill, I think intuition, all of those things. But, we've got to prioritize sometimes what to jump on first.
Right.
But, when that client, when that client, and you do know that client, right? You know them inside and out, if you're helping with a buy or a sell. And when that problem comes up, and I see agents, particularly we do a lot of co-brokers. I see a lot of agents, 80% of our business is co-brokers, where they just let it go, or they don't do anything, or they don't bother, or they're on vacation and they just say, nope, can't do it. That doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Like, you've got to jump on those problems. The agents that jump on the problems are the ones that tend to be the most successful in the industry.
One comes to mind right now, and it was actually in Cordillera Ranch, and it was with one of our agents, and I knew my client, and it was a very VIP client.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, the buyers, we represent the sellers. The buyers wanted 2 plants to be planted, and I was not going to ask my VIP client to plant 2 plants on the day of closing.
I remember
and
this.
So me and Malin run over to Home Depot, figure out which plants were necessary. We buy the plants. We don't even tell the clients. Like, they don't, to this day, they still don't know that we planted plants in their
And they
in their
shouldn't
yard.
know.
Yeah. And so we went and did that, let the buyers know that it was been taken care of, and we went to closing, and everything went well, but it's like, had I called the client and said, hey, I need you to plant 2 plants, they would have been like, absolutely not. And maybe the deal could have been blown over something so silly.
Right. If we can take care of it, we take care of it.
Exactly.
The whole point is to make it easy.
Well, and thank you for resisting the temptation to video yourself planting the plants
I'm sure there's a photo somewhere.
and then posting it on social media to say that you go the extra mile.
Right.
Because I'm seeing a little bit too much of that in our marketplace right now.
Right.
That's so true.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you're doing your job? Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I just, it's everything from the pets to the, we've had, we had the inspector flood the house during the inspection. I mean, everything that can go wrong will go wrong sometimes. Right. And so we've just got to be able, and this is where, in another way that you've also succeeded that a lot of people don't talk about, is that you were not only out there building your personal business, but you were building your book of vendors and people that you could count on when that's, so that you could pick up the phone and call if that flood happened overnight.
Yeah.
And you've got that plumber or you've got that contractor that will drop everything for you guys.
Right.
And that's kind of a skill that nobody really talks about.
Yeah.
But that's a huge deal that you've got those people. You can get them into that restaurant. You can get that get that water damage fixed quickly. There's, you're not just sitting there helpless. Their car gets towed. You can, send somebody to go pick them up. We've done all kinds of things like that. The locksmith story is trite, but we've done that a million times. All of those things that we do, and part of that, what I loved about you guys in New Braunfels is that you've networked with the business community.
Yeah.
So you've got all these solid people who are also owners of businesses that y'all are talking, you're meeting on at least a monthly basis, all that going on. And it's not just because they're sources of business to you, it's because they can help your client.
Right.
Right.
And that's huge. And, it's so fun because, we've got a text group, and I know I can always count on Team Iñaky to, give me a window washer in New Braunfels in about 18 seconds.
Yeah.
He's always the first one to come back. And I know he knows the people personally. He's probably, knows their families, knows their significant other, whatever. He's probably been to their house at this point. So I always know that you've got this amazing, just huge team. And, again, not to be negative, but when you compare agent to agent, not every agent operates that way.
Right.
And so they're not equal.
Yeah.
And they're not equal because they don't have that team or that whatever. And so I just think that's a huge part of the business that a lot of times we don't talk about.
Well, yeah, and it's so important because, the contractors or other people that you refer out, like, that's a reflection on you, even though that's a totally separate business and they have no tie to you. They really do, because you're sending them out to your client, and if they do a crappy job, they're going to think of you not giving them the right contact information.
Exactly.
So we never give the contact information of somebody that we don't personally know. If somebody asks for some sort of service and we're just going to Google them, I tell the client that, like, hey, I don't have a personal relationship with anybody.
Right.
What I can do is Google some and find, who has the best reviews. But I just want to let you know ahead of time that I don't have a relationship. Typically, we know somebody. To your point, we've networked so much within the business community. And with that mindset of being friends first, not necessarily knowing how they're going to help me in the future, but I know that, out of the thousands of people that I met, like some of them, even though I have really good close relationships for no other business reason, sometimes it comes up like, oh, I need this kind of service, and I connect those people. And then it goes back to helping both people, right? Because when you're able to add value to two people, and then it maybe doesn't add value to you, but I'm able to connect two people. Now both of them are looking about how they can reciprocate and add value back to you.
Right.
And maybe not everybody thinks that way, but I really always try to connect people in a positive way, even if it's not going to directly impact me.
You're top of mind.
I think it's wired in our DNA, that law of reciprocity, which if you haven't read The Go-Giver, read it. But there's so much truth to that, because I think we're all connected on a soul level, truly. And I think that that law of reciprocity exists. And I think that even if we don't intellectually or, remember exactly how that connection was made, it just kind of comes around in that beautiful spiritual air. And if we've got our antenna up and our catcher's mitt out and we're open, it's about openness, right?
Yeah, exactly. And being authentic and being real, and people can feel that. They can feel when you're truly trying to help them versus when you're trying to help them to get something back.
Exactly.
Definitely.
I think openness fixes everything.
Yeah. So you mentioned growth mindset and fixed mindset earlier. I want to get into that. What is a growth mindset and what's a fixed mindset?
Well, I'll start with a fixed mindset. So I think the fixed mindset is basically the hallmark of that is the person that does not see the possibility, right? That everything has a predictable outcome. It can be negative, it can be positive, but it's always a predictable outcome and there's no way out, right? And I've just never been wired that way. The growth mindset is a person that sees the possibility, that genuinely believes that there is always a different way or another way to do something or another way to fix a problem. And one of my favorite people on the planet, I'm not the person with the lettered walls or the printed signs, but One of our agents gave us a sign that said everything is figure outable, and I do have that in my kitchen.
Nice.
So when I wake up, I walk out, I go grab my coffee, and I see that because it is true. And I think the fixed mindset is the key to happiness in life. I think it's the key to relationships. I do also believe that personality-wise, there are people that are hardwired one way or the other. You know, we know there's personality types that tend toward optimism, which I am, you are, and there's personality types that are tend toward problems and pessimism. I think they struggle a little bit more than I do. But I'm telling you, with a great morning routine, taking care of yourself physically, mentally, you know, you can carry that growth mindset regardless of your personality or your behavioral style.
Yeah,
Definitely.
and sometimes it's so cliche because you keep hearing it. You know, have a morning routine. Like all these influencers talk about it, and it just seems like just such a silly, funny thing to do until you try it. And so I want to challenge everybody to try it because I started doing morning routines. You know, probably 8 years ago when I got into this business, and I know that it totally changed my life. You know, I take care of myself first, so then I can go ahead and take care of others. And your morning routine doesn't have to look like everybody else's. Like figure out what works for you. You know, like I definitely try to work out almost every single day in the morning, first thing in the morning. I used to work out in the evenings because that's when I felt the most strength and I wanted to push the most weight. But now I work out for a different reason. Like in college, I was working out to look good. Now I'm working out so my mind is good. So I like to work out first thing in the morning so that my mind is clear and I'm able to just go throughout the day and have a better impact in the world.
So I love the morning routine because, and I'm the worst because I have tended toward perfectionism, which is a terrible disease, by the way, a lot of my life. And so I fight it, and I still fight it to this day. And the antidote to perfectionism really is the morning routine because you can get your head on straight. So I will fall off the bandwagon because it's not perfect, because I've got this way I want to do it, and I'm a total control freak. And then I'll just get up earlier and earlier and earlier. I'm like, what am I doing? You know, and my poor
You're missing the point of
well,
that.
right. And my husband's going, honey, just what are you? Just calm down, you know? And so when I fall off the bandwagon, my first thought is, okay, this isn't working. And then I'll go, that's fixed. And then I get back up on the bandwagon, and then I'll change it up so that I understand that it doesn't have to be Carolyn's control freak morning routine because I have to. And,
As
you know,
you change, the morning routine changes too.
exactly. So I went out and bought a puppy.
Nice.
So the puppy's crazy, and it's an Australian Shepherd, so it's 100 miles an hour. It's not particularly easily trained because it's smarter than the rest of us. And that has really, honestly, I know this sounds crazy, but it's really helped my morning routine. And the joy of pets and children and all of that good stuff, I'm telling you, it's real. And if, you know, that will help center you. Go get chickens, go get a gerbil, whatever. But I think having that and having to deal with something else, another sentient human being that probably has to be trained on some level, has been great for me because it just sort of gets me out of my head and into what does that little being need, especially since the kids are too old for me to, you know, totally doctor them now and do everything. Because, you know, when you hit 26, they probably don't need mom anymore.
Right. Yeah. You got to keep it fresh.
Another thing you taught me was the energy quadrants, right? Being self-aware of what energy you're currently in whenever you're working on something. So there's the high positive energy, there's the high negative energy, and there's a low positive energy, and then there's a low negative energy. So can you take us through all four of those?
Oh, gosh. Yes.
Because it's helped me a lot. You know, sometimes I like, and we'll talk like that sometimes. I'm just in low positive right now. Like I'm not upset. I'm just low positive. I'm relaxed. I'm
So
chill.
you can be hard to read sometimes, and that's true. But so I will tell you, this was one of the things that I think I got it from Larry Kendall, the author of Ninja Selling first. I had seen it. Gary Keller had part of this in his quantum mechanics class. So I had been around this concept a long time, but it became very real for me during COVID, and we slammed our offices shut March 14th, 2020. I can't work from home, so I was absolutely beside myself, and I knew a lot of agents felt that way. It was very stressful and dramatic for everyone. And so that concept, and I kept talking about it online over and over again in our podcast and our videocast. But, you know, when you start, and it helped me get out of judgment of people where I could sort of quickly figure out which quadrant they were in. but it also helped me self-diagnose. And I'm really big, particularly, I don't know, in the last few months, on self-awareness, because self-awareness is another tool that we need to master big time. But so that low negative energy is hard because you can creep into that. And that's when you just start, you start complaining, you start blaming others, you start very subtly, it just becomes negative, right? It's their fault. I didn't do this. Gosh, everything's a problem. I don't know if we can work our way out of this. You start to get there, right? I mean, and it's very easy then to have that build up over time, depending on your behavioral style and your personality, to let that go. Now, I'm what is commonly called a dominant personality, so I'm quick to anger, and I don't stay angry, and I don't remember what I was angry about. I just go bloop, bloop, done. And but that high negative is a force to be reckoned with, and most people don't deal with that behavior well. They don't want to be on the other, there's really no place for that in business, to be honest. And so we all know what that looks like. And frankly, we've all probably been at the other end of it at one time or another. And then the place that I think is the most sought after is that high positive energy. Because
it feels good.
We feel good, and we're like this, and we can be on video 15 hours a day, and we can do this, and we can do all these clients, and we can have 18 listing appointments. And so the myth of real estate right now, which has been because of the camera, is that we're all high positive energy all the time. You can't sustain that. That's maybe in some respects bad or worse for you than the high negative energy, because at least high negative energy, somebody's going to come back and go, you either need to go to jail, or I want a divorce, or, so the world is going to react to high negative energy. They're also going to react to high positive energy and want you to be in it all the time.
Yeah. Right.
It doesn't work. So when we recognize that the place where we should be as much time as possible is in the low positive, because that is the recharge zone. That's where the magic is happening. That's where the creativity starts. That's where our next steps get fit. And when you're in the high mode, right? Your high mode is really to play for the audience, right? So that's when you're with your clients.
Yeah.
That's when your team needs a boost. That's when you're focused outward, right? So that low positive recharge zone allows you to work on your business. It allows you to deepen your relationships.
Yeah.
That's where it happens. And so I just think that's so important. And I think the ability to recognize where people might be, then you can sort of go, okay, I can do this or help solve that problem to counter where they are right now and maybe shift them over to that positive side of the equation.
And I used to be at fault for always wanting to be in high positive.
we
Like
all
that was
do.
me. And so you taught me that, but really the master at low positive energy is Malin. Yes.
It's just chill mode.
And she's taught me that, it's like I'm always go, 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 go. And she reminds me to relax, take it easy, slow down. It's okay to just chill. And that really does like recharge me, So now I'm doing a lot more things for myself that don't necessarily benefit my business, but they benefit me. And in a way, they do benefit my business because I'm in a better mental state. I'm more relaxed. I'm more chill. So it's kind of counterintuitive, but it is enlightened self-interest, because when you take care of yourself, you can take care of the business.
Well, and you can get addicted to the high positive, right? Because I've never needed a lot of sleep. I've always been a high energy person.
Yeah.
I just was go, go, go. I liked the fact that people were intimidated by how many hours I could work, because I could work harder.
Yeah.
We are very similar. We
similar.
have very similar natures, very similar personalities. And that can be that can be addicting. And when I recognized, and I don't know what made me recognize it, it was actually probably more observing other people than being self-aware, when I realized, why are they always trying to climb to the high positive all the time? And when I really started to get this really, thoughtful about that, I recognized, oh gosh, Carolyn, let's put the mirror on yourself. I mean, and it's a lot of it's for show, but we need we're here for show.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I mean, part of our job is for show. And that's to demonstrate to people that we've got this and that we can carry them through the most stressful time of their life and that we can solve problems. I don't want to work with somebody that's in low negative zone,
Right.
because they can't solve my problem.
Yeah.
And so I want to see that they're, rrr, and I'm going to get it. And, I think that some of the grit culture and some of the hustle culture has thrown us into thinking that we need to be in that zone 24/7. We can't be, we don't want to be. It's not natural and it's not authentic.
Right.
Yeah.
Not only is it important to know what energy you're currently operating in, but also what energy the client is currently in, because
Yes.
there is real estate transactions that happen for pleasure, and
Yes.
there's real estate transactions that happen because of pain.
Very true.
And those are very different ways to handle that client.
Yep.
And within those, the pain and pleasure, in the pain, somebody can be in high negative or they can be in low negative. And you have to figure out where they're at, because you have to talk to them differently. Just kind of like a doctor, assessing their patient. You have to be very in tune with your client's emotional state and what their goals are in order to be able to serve them right.
Well, and I know that because you guys come to all of our training, but one of the things that I always focus on, and not to be negative, but we've got to be able to recognize what people fear so that we can help them through that. I mean, look, we're the Sherpa, we're taking the whole pack. We're getting everybody up to Kilimanjaro, regardless of the weather situation. So we can't, sit there and not know, and we owe them the ability. I'm finding right now, particularly in the market, and I kind of see the big picture just with the phone and the agents we have and the billions of dollars that we sell. But I'm seeing the market where the buyer is a little shakier right now, and they're quick to pull back. They're quick to walk the transaction even after they've written a contract. I'm seeing a little bit of that behavior kind of multiply. And again, had that buyer's agent sat back and said, where are these people, even in their emotional quadrant? They may not know what their personality style is or whatever, and if I've got 2 or 3 decision makers, depending on if I've got, life partners or families or whatever, I might have an 18-year-old teenage girl tanking the deal and I don't know it. We need to know that, right? And this happened, and I'm using that example. That's a real life example. So I said, well, have you taken the girl out and put her in the car and just driven around with her? Said, what's going on with you with the move?
Yeah.
And this agent did that. And, luckily that agent was very good with teenagers. She had teenagers of her own, was able to have that little girl. But, a lot of people let their children pick the homes. I mean, it's a new world.
Right.
And so a lot of people move because of pets and children. And the pet and the child may have a decision.
Yeah.
So, and we need to understand all of the pets and the children's,
Right.
energy level as well.
It's so true. We wear so many hats, and
We do.
Have psychiatrists.
It's psychiatrist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I get so many calls from newer agents or people that are getting into the business because they've seen me on social media, they've seen the success, they followed it, and typically younger people call me and they want to know, what it's like.
Yeah.
And they all have kind of like the same expectations. I always ask them, why do you want to get into the business? And they always tell me, because you can make a lot of money, you can control your schedule, and you don't have a boss. And it's like, well, surprise, none of that is true.
Yeah.
Everybody's your boss.
Everybody's your boss. You're not going to control. You have a certain control of your schedule, but if you want to be successful, you kind of have to be available. And then also, it's like, yeah, you can make a lot of money, but it's a small percentage of the agents that actually get to that success level. Most of them are not selling that many homes, and it's because they come with the wrong mindset. It's like, I feel that anybody with the right mindset can be successful, but most people that come into the business, for some reason, it just attracts people with different mindsets that they're just not going to serve them well.
Well, I mean, I don't remember who posted this, but somebody posted, the Austin Board of Realtors put out an interesting little chart saying that, like 1.2% of agents closed 14 transactions in the last 365 days.
That's wild.
And, again, for you, 14 transactions, that's not keeping the team afloat.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's not even supporting, Iñaky's morning routine probably.
Yeah,
So
right.
financially speaking. And what people don't understand is that we are, if we have a listing, in a certain area or whatever, and let's say it's in an off area or what have you, we're dumping $10, $12, $15, $20,000 into that without hoping, without necessarily getting a return on investment.
Right.
The seller's not writing us a check the day that we write the check. And so And people don't really understand that. So the investment, it becomes a game of net,
Yeah.
right? Of net amounts that you're keeping. And so I know I talk to a lot of people about wanting to get into real estate,
Yeah.
and it's not for everybody, but it is something that I've said this to you guys before. I think I've tried to quit once, maybe twice, and I just can't do it. Like
Yeah.
I'll never leave this business ever. And what I love about it, and there was a lady in Houston, and you're maybe too young to remember her, and she had a company called Caldwell Banker Madeline O'Brien. And I remember when I walked in I lived in a high rise at the time, and I walked in, and it was Madeline's 99th birthday, and she had a driver. But she was showing a unit in my condo on her 99th birthday. And she looked gorgeous, and she had the listing, and she was talking to them about what was so great about the building. 99 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do that. And she's in her suit and her tweed jacket. Her hair was perfect. Her driver was right behind her because, it's probably better if she wasn't driving. But I was like so impressed at the value she was still giving to the client.
Yeah.
And I mean, and I'll never forget that. I'll never forget her walking up to the desk at the building that I lived in, and I'm like, 99. Happy birthday, Madeline.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting here to the top of the hour. I want to thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
If you can leave the audience with like one tip, one piece of advice. We have this podcast about many different things, not just real estate, but anything that you want to share with the audience, like what would it be?
I just, what? I think it's about having a happy life. And if you start with the happy life, and we got in the giggles on a text group the other day about your husband on the last podcast saying that his why was cars, and it made me laugh. And I laughed because I was so glad somebody was honest. And so if you have a moment, sit back and think about, why are you doing this? And as I told Malin, if it's about Botox and David Yurman jewelry, and that's why you get up every day, let it be about Botox and David Yurman jewelry. For me right now, it's about my dog. But I just think it's important that you know why you're doing what you do. The reason why we're on this podcast, I have this tremendous joy for this business. I never get tired of it. It's always fun for me. And, my why is this business. I love it so much that I'll never leave it. And I hope that everybody finds that business. And if your day job isn't that business, do something on the side. I've had as many as 4 jobs before. So do something on the side. Find your passion, and you could monetize it or not, but find your passion.
And it's so true. And, it really does start with why, like the book from Simon Sinek. And,
It's true.
I've heard that for so long. And for the longest time, I did not know what my why was because I just had no idea. Like, I just enjoy doing what I'm doing. And probably a couple of years ago, I just realized what my why is. And my why is validating my mom's effort to get me over to this country. And that's really why I do what I do. It's because she did so much to get us over here and to build a good life for us that the only thing I can do to support her and to show her appreciation is to be successful.
Yeah. And she's so happy.
Yes, she is.
Mic drop. I'm crying.
Well, guys,
Love
this is
it.
Iñaky's Coffee Club. We had Carolyn Rhodes, Vice President of Kuper Sotheby's International Realty, with us today. Malin Jacqueline, Director of Operations at the Strick Group. And I'm Iñaky Strick, Broker Associate at Kuper Sotheby's International Realty. Thanks for watching.